What's up, e-bikers? So I'm here at Northeast Battery Systems. We're here in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. They build, refurbish, and repair e-bike batteries. So we're going to get a quick tour of the facility and check it out. So stay tuned. Okay, we're recording. All right, we're here at Northeast Battery Systems in Windsor Locks. This is Kevin here, one of the owners. Hey, Kevin.
How you doing, Chris? Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us today. So you guys are been here about 6 months now, since May, and been in the bike industry for a long time. But you build, refurbish, and repair batteries here. So
right.
How's business going so far?
Business is fantastic. It's always growing. All my business is referral or repeat customers. So I don't do any advertising at all.
Yep. And you've got some batteries here waiting to, I guess, be built or refurbished. Give us a quick tour of what you're doing right now.
Right. So this is kind of my incoming shelf. Some of these I'm building for customers that I've sold motor systems and batteries to. Others are from bicycle dealers from around the country that want their battery refurbished.
Yeah, give us a quick example of some of the types of battery styles you're working on today, because you have all kinds of different sizes and shapes, right?
Right. So this is an older iZip, very popular on the down tube. Mm-hmm. This clicks in. There's thousands of these bikes out there that still run fine, but getting new batteries for these is nearly impossible. But I can rebuild these and upgrade them as well to higher capacity.
About how long does it take to get a battery refurbished from you guys?
My turnaround time is generally less than a week. It's pretty fast. And
you can ship it here and you'll ship it back?
Right. Yep. I am a certified hazmat shipper, and I can actually ship overseas as well. I've done a couple recently to Canada. It's not cheap, but when no one else will do it, people are willing to pay a little bit more to have it done professionally.
Yep. And you've got some high-longs in here, some shark styles, I guess. And...
Right. High-long, very, very common, very popular. These come in various heights, and these can be mounted either on the down tube or a rear rack.
Yep.
Too. This is yet to be built, of course.
And you just got some electric cases in, right? You could potentially work on those as well.
Yes, that's something I just got in this morning, actually. I'm going to rebuild one of those and see how big of a capacity I can do.
Nice.
That's a very popular bike, I know. I'm learning.
Yep. Cool. Let's take a look at your shop back here.
Sure.
You got the whole workshop going on. And this is inside a battery refurbisher here. So
right.
Walk me through kind of what you got going on and how it all works.
So loaded with parts, of course. It's always an evolving business as the industry changes and different battery styles are made. You're going to need parts to replace or service. So lots of various hardware, as you can see to your left. I have different stations for disassembly and reassembly. Over here would be more for the electric side of it. So putting on BMSs, wiring the batteries, all types of heat shrink, special tapes are used. So that's for kind of a final production spot. And then over here we have the welding station. This is a professional welder that I use. This offers high output, so as fast as I can weld, it'll do it.
And talk about the types of cells you use. I guess you only use the LG, Samsung, and top of the line, right?
Typically, only brand name cells are used for safety reasons. The cheaper knockoff cells are potentially very dangerous. A good quality cell will have venting, so if it gets shorted, a little puff of gas will come out due to a perforated vent that'll pop if it's a dead short, and that prevents the whole pack from going. So it's worth spending a little bit more money and knowing that you're not going to burn your place down.
Yep. And these are all your BMSs up here. You got one on the
large selection of BMSs. That's a common one you're seeing there. Yep. So these are rated for different voltages and different amperages.
So 48 volts is 40 volt, 20 amp hour. Okay.
Right. I typically like to use this style BMS because it's waterproof and it also has a temperature probe for added safety. And it's, not that much more, and to have that kind of peace of mind.
Yep. So tell the viewers who don't know about BMSs, like what is this for and why it's so important, in a battery.
So all lithium batteries, including the one in your phone and any other electronic device like a laptop, is going to have a smaller version of what you see here. And a BMS stands for Battery Management System. It's protecting the cells and the pack. And it does that in this particular instance, as temperature protection, so if it gets too hot, it'll shut the unit off. But it also offers over or under voltage protection as well. So it'll limit how low the battery can go and how high it can go as well. So when it's charging, this will make sure that it doesn't overcharge.
Gotcha.
So without this, and somebody used the wrong charger, for example, a higher voltage than they should, the charger is going to keep going and going and going, and then the cells are going to overheat and eventually cause a fire.
Yep.
This also provides what's called balancing, cell balancing. So once it's almost charged fully, the balancing kicks in, and any imbalance in the cells, it's going to make sure they're all the same voltage before it stops the charging. So that's essentially going to prolong the life to years for your pack.
Yep.
Something without that, it might last a year or two, depending on the cell quality.
How long should a typical battery last an e-bike user, just on average?
I would say the average user, 4 to 5 years before you start seeing serious degradation should be common.
Yep.
But it really depends on battery care and how much you're using it.
Yeah.
If you're out every day or every other day and you're putting a lot of miles on, certainly not going to last as long, but you're getting more for your money, so it's certainly worth it, even if you have to buy a new one or rebuild it.
Yep.
In a few years, you got your money's worth out of it because you've went thousands of miles.
Definitely.
Hopefully.
And you've got some, walk me through a little bit about how you build batteries here. You've got you do things a little bit differently. You've got these nickel plated
So
here.
these are pure nickel strips, and these are pre-cut so that it makes pack building faster and safer. If you do each one, if you cut your own strips, which is common for do-it-yourselfers, they're pointy and extremely sharp. These are like a razor blade, and if that ever vibrates during a ride and it cuts through the cell, it could short the cell out.
So you weld these to the top of the cells.
Right.
That's basically what makes a battery pack.
Right.
For an e-bike.
So I use different shapes based on the type of pack that I need. You can see these are very unique shapes. So I arrange the cells in a certain way and then use the correct. Now this isn't typically for the average person because you have to buy a lot of these in one shot.
Yep.
But
so you used to work at a bike shop.
yes, for a long time.
Where did you learn to do all this stuff?
So I have an electronics background going back 100 years, I think, from car audio. I spent about 20 years in car electronics. So after taking computer repair in high school, I moved into car electronics where I did car alarms, remote starters, even rear defoggers before cars had those. It's showing my age right now.
Yep.
And amplifiers and things like that. And that moved into navigation systems, cruise controls. Anything that a car didn't come with that does now, we had to install for dealers. So that really, I got my hands in there and learned how to diagnose and troubleshoot electronic and of course fix them too.
Yep.
So this was kind of a natural thing for me because I already knew basic electronics.
Yeah.
So
definitely. What would let's give the audience an example. What would it cost me to fix, say, electric 14 amp hour battery, for example, today if I sent it to you and wanted to get it refurbished or repaired?
Everyone's pretty unique, so it really depends on what it is, the brand, and the type of case and things like that. Generally speaking, it's usually a little bit less than what a manufacturer would charge you.
So, for example, electric cells, I think the 14 amp hour for $500 if you wanted to buy one outright. If I were to say, okay, Kevin, can you build me the same thing? Would it cost that much? Would it cost more, less?
No, it would probably be, I would say, $75 to $100 less.
Oh, okay.
For something similar.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very reasonable.
Being small, I don't have a lot of overhead, so I can be a lot more fair with pricing, and people can get it locally very quickly, and call somebody if there's, if they need tech support. They can just call me and ask as many questions as they want. So.
Very cool. Well, let's talk about battery management in terms of just, you've got some tips here. Kevin gave me this cool sheet. I'll put a list, I'll try and put a link to this somewhere on the video description for the audience. But one thing, it's cold right now, so I get a lot of questions about winter storage of batteries. So give me some tips around how to store your batteries in the winter and what to do there.
So the main thing is you want to store it in a cool, dry place. The bike's okay in a garage or even a shed, but humidity, moisture is the enemy with any electronics.
Yeah, it's humidity. If like if you're in Florida, if you're storing a bike in a shed maybe, and it's really humid out there, that's bad?
I mean,
you can't get in there? Moisture?
It's not as bad as if you had the battery in there too. You want to keep the battery always in a cool, dry place if possible. Cold is very bad for a battery though. So if you had it in a freezing shed, for example, for several, and then you had one crazy day where it just was like 60 degrees out and you were dying to ride. If you take a frozen battery and just stick it on your bike and go, you could permanently damage that.
Right.
Because severe cold can actually change the chemistry of what's inside the cell.
Yeah.
And it's not something you can recover. So
yeah,
very important.
One thing you say is let the battery warm to room temperature first before using it. That's
right.
That's a pretty key tip there, I think.
Right. I tend to think of cells, lithium cells, as like people. So we work best at room temperature most of the time. Some people don't mind the cold or the heat, but generally speaking, it's best to work at room temperature.
Yeah.
Because if it's 0 degrees out, you're going to have a hard time doing what you do normally outside when it's 50 to 70 degrees, for example. So it's much like that with lithium.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. Charging to approximately 80%. I think a lot of people. How important is that? I mean, I've heard that mentioned a bunch of times in the last couple of years since writing ebooks, but is that a really critical component for maintaining the battery life? So
it can be if you're able to do that on a regular basis and not fully charge it every single time. The cell life can increase quite a bit. It could be even a year or two more than you would get normally. Now, if you're riding daily, for example, it's fine because you're charging, discharging, charging, discharging. It's not a big deal. But if you charge to 100% and you let it sit for weeks being unused, you're stressing the cells and they're not being used. So it's kind of like if you fill a water balloon just before it pops, it takes very little to make it pop. And if you let some water out, it gets thicker and thicker, so it's harder to pop. So think about it in those terms, electrically or chemically. They're not happy being dead or fully charged without use. Lithium batteries work best when they're used, just like your muscles in your body.
Right.
If you don't use them, they diminish.
It says here, number 3, never charge the battery right after a ride as the cells are already warm from use. Wait at least 60 minutes so the battery can cool down. That's interesting as well.
Right. So a good analogy would be, let's say you just went running and you ran home, you're really hot, and your internal temperature is extremely hot from running. You probably wouldn't jump into a raging hot shower as soon as you got home, because it wouldn't feel good.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good for you either. So you want to let the cells kind of relax, settle down, cool off, because charging injects heat during the charging process. It's not as much as when you're riding, but it's still heat that can build up. So it's always best for the cells to just kind of let them cool off and then do your charging. Yep. Typically 30, 60 minutes, something like that, and then they'll be at room temperature.
Is there a charger on the market today that will tell you what the percentage is that you could buy potentially?
Right behind you. They're not typical for the average person. The cycle satiator is made by Grin Technologies in Canada. these are, obviously anyone can buy them, but anybody who does battery work for a living is probably going to own one or more of these. These can be set to different profiles of your choosing. I believe they can hold 17 different profiles. So I can program this to do whatever I want, whatever voltage, when it shuts off, things like that. But it's not a typical purchase for the average person because these are, I think, around $300, possibly more.
Oh yeah.
At this point. So I haven't seen anything on the market that's similar.
What are the What's the connection point like? Is it a barrel plug or is it because e-bike batteries have different ways of plugging in, right?
This is a standard.
Okay, I've seen a few of those. Yep.
And I build all these adapters you see on the wall.
Oh, okay. These are all
so that I can charge and discharge. Anytime I get a new battery, I make an adapter for it.
Yep. These are like the 3-prong. You got the this XT.
Right.
XT. What are these?
XT60.
XT60s. Yeah. Yep. Very interesting.
So this helps me speed up the process of analyzing batteries, and this here is the analyzer, also made by Grin in conjunction with. There's giant resistors in there that create a load which simulates a bike being ridden, and that's how I can test the capacity of batteries.
Very cool. You also do conversions here with some of the bikes. You want to show us quickly what you're?
Sure.
You got a little shop back here going on, and so I think you're converting this Raleigh here right now.
So hybrids are very popular conversions. This one's going to be a mid-drive, and I've already built that out here. And I could also mount on a rear rack if you prefer back here. Very, very common.
You putting a kind of a mid-drive motor? Are you putting on it?
This one's actually getting a rear hub.
A rear hub, okay.
Use a Bafang. That is, right here.
Oh, there it is.
That's the motor there. It's 48 volt, 500 watt. And this is very good for someone who doesn't want to lose their gears in the front. Because with the mid-drive, obviously, you're going to lose your gears. Essentially doing the same system in that titanium trike that's on the floor as well. It's going to be a very similar setup. I'm going to have a couple more hybrids that are going to be motorized as well.
Nice. Very cool.
So any kind of service can be done as well.
What's a typical conversion like this cost, for example?
So the battery size is going to be a big factor in pricing. It could be, I would say, average could be anywhere from $1,300 to maybe $1,700, including labor and everything you need.
Yep. Cheaper than cost of any bike almost.
And it's great if you already have a bike you love, you just can't do hills anymore, for example, and you don't want to get rid of your comfortable bike. You just turn it into an e-bike and you can do hills now. You're happy.
Well, I appreciate the tour, Kevin. It's northeastbatterysystems.com, and we'll put a link there in the description. And Kevin, thanks for showing us around today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.